My name is Matt Hawkins. I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I am a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a small business owner. And with all of those experiences, I can recognize clearly that there's a polarization that's going on within our environment today. So that Democrats are saying one thing, Republicans are saying another, and nobody's listening to each other. Everything is a polarized solution. And yet everybody in the middle is trying to understand, why can't their voice be heard? I'm here to tell you that the people in the middle, your voice can be heard. And people today are starting to wake up to that fact. We have some significant problems that we're facing as a society. We are seeing the erosion of families. We are seeing our freedoms being challenged to the point that in some ways we're even seeing a loss of our freedoms today. We have religious leaders that are finally coming together and talking like they've never talked before, because they recognize we can't be polarized in our beliefs. We've got to be bringing people to the middle. We've got to be bringing people to a point of discussion, because we are a land of immigrants. And being a land of immigrants, we find that people came here for a reason, and that is they wanted to live the American dream. I believe that American dream is being challenged today, and that there are some that would like to see our freedoms being diminished, or that they would like to see the only solution being a government solution. I don't believe that. I believe that the best solution is allowing the human element, the human spirit that has come here to this country, that recognizes the values we have as a society, to step forward. And if we can allow that human element to step forward, we'll find the best of solutions. The Second Amendment, like the other amendments in our Constitution, need to be protected. We find in today's environment that the mass killings that are taking place are not restricted to just guns. We're finding that the mass killings that are taking place are being moved into bombs. They're being moved into the use of vehicles, knives. If we're trying to prevent mass killings, then we need to, I guess, outlaw everything. But just a second. All other issues of mass killing are outlawed in the first place. So the challenge really becomes one of saying, what else can we do to ensure that our schools are safe, that our public arenas are safe? And I think we're doing a lot of things. Is there more that can be done? Yeah. Have we brought the best ideas forward? Apparently not. But at the end of the day, if we infringe upon the gun control rights that we have, the freedoms that we have as a society, we also put at risk our ability to have free exercise of speech. And I don't know about you, but for me, freedom of speech is essential to the survival of this country. We're a country of immigrants. My family has immigrated to this country. My great-grandfather, when he came on over to this country with his family, that story was never really completely told, and yet we dug in, we found how they came over from Europe, and we recognized that very clearly they had a high respect for this country. My grandfather wouldn't do anything to disrespect this country, and that's a value that he taught to the succeeding generations. My point is, I think that we need to have a strong border. And with that strong border, we need to have an expectation that as we allow people into this country, that they come into this country with an expectation that they want to teach those same values to their children and to their grandchildren. And if we can do that, then hopefully we can teach a better way of life on how humanity can behave to one another. And by being good examples, they can go forth into the world to become good examples to everyone else. Within my home, I have a front door, and on that front door I have a lock. I have the ability to lock that door when I choose to. If I think that people are coming into my home that aren't going to respect my environment, I should have a right to excuse them from my home. That's the same that we can do within this country. I think that we have a responsibility to put borders in place and boundaries in place, and an expectation that when people come into our society, they are going to contribute to our society and make America an even better place. And that if we do a good enough job, again, we'll take that example out to the world and perhaps help the world understand how humanity can better behave amongst themselves. Our free trade policies need to be revisited on occasion, depending upon what the markets are telling us is occurring. In most instances, when we enter into free trade agreements, we're trying to set the stage so that free markets really are at the forefront, so that businesses can have an equal balance in their trade between countries. But we find that a lot of times governments will step in to manipulate the process by putting incentives in place or putting programs in place that will give businesses out of their environment an added benefit or incentive in comparison to competing countries. When that occurs, we've got to go back in and revisit the program to see what's gone wrong and to see what we can do to level the playing field so that free markets truly are free markets and not a market where government biases can favor one business over another. Healthcare costs are rising because government has elected to get involved to manage a system that they never had a right or responsibility or reason to even be involved with. I recognize that healthcare costs, for example, in 2008 to 2010 were climbing in the minds of some people. I recognize that more than anyone else. My healthcare costs went from about $8,000 a year to my final bill was about $38,000 a year in 2010. That's exorbitant. That's something that's not approachable, that's something that's not livable. So when I say that healthcare costs have been, the problem has been exacerbated, it's been exacerbated because of government involvement. Now government's gotten involved, and so government owns the responsibility for how they've stirred the pot and how they've been involved. But if we want to bring healthcare costs down, both from the standpoint of insurance programs as well as the standpoint of affordability for medical practitioners, we've got to allow free markets to step back in. But we've got to allow free markets to step back in without government control and without government influence. I go back 100 years. Our healthcare costs at that time were insignificant compared to where we're at today. And families could actually get by on their medical coverage for their family without any insurance at that time. I've had a lot of people come up to me on the street saying, "Matt, what's gone on?" Because 100 years ago, my parents' generation, they didn't necessarily have to be bothered with insurance, and they could afford to go to a doctor. So we have a responsibility within the medical community. Doctors have got to help find a solution to help bring the cost down. But at the same time, it's got to be done on the backs of the free markets. It's got to be done on the backs of individuals coming to the table to try to find solutions. It cannot be by government, either the federal or the state level, thinking that they have the solution and that they know how to manage the resources. They don't. The simple challenge we have as a nation today is getting good people to step forward and getting people in general to believe in themselves. We have a society that's moving towards the idea that good people are feeling disengaged. They're feeling unimportant. They're feeling that their involvement doesn't matter. It does matter. There's an old saying that when good people don't get involved, that evil rises. And over the course of the last 200 plus years, we see what our founding fathers gave us in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we recognize that the freedoms that we have as a country, there have been generations of people that have believed that and have tried to build upon it, even to the point of clarifying the Bill of Rights to give us other constitutional rights over the course of the last 200 years. Perhaps the second thing that's happening because of people not being involved is we've seen the erosion of the family. You can't legislate good family. A good family comes from practicing and working on finding solutions at the home level. and in raising kids up to try to be good citizens within their community, to be involved, to help one another, to show charity towards one another. But there are some people that want to believe that charity is a government action. It's not. Charity is something that's an individual action that's taught within our communities. I honestly believe that we need to get back to getting good people involved, and we need to let good people know that by driving a conversation, just as our founding fathers, they had conversations on what would make a good document for this Constitution we had in Bill of Rights. We need to do the same thing today. We need to get people off the fence line, into the middle. We need to have that conversation forming up, and with that conversation forming up, we'll find that the best of solutions come forward so that our families can be made stronger, our freedoms can be guaranteed, and we can begin to have faith in one another. I believe that our number one issue that we have today deals with our youth that we can address immediately. And that issue that we can address immediately within months of getting into office would be getting our teenagers back into the workforce. Businesses are restricted in many ways from hiring teenagers to work. I understand that clearly because my own children, when they became teenagers, were restricted in getting any of the kind of jobs that I had when I was a youth. And I kind of wonder what happened. What's happened to our society over the period of the last 40 years? That now our sons can't work construction, but they can be, lifeguards at a pool. I kind of wonder what we're doing in teaching life skills to our children, or helping our children to acquire the life skills that will set them onto a pathway for the future. We find that the trades within our country are being impacted because we don't have a replacement generation of workers coming into those programs. And yet we wonder why. Well, I've got to believe that part of the answer to why is we're not giving any of our children the opportunity to work in those environments within those teenage years, to be able to determine whether they even like it or not. I think that to couple that again with education, I think that education, there's some things that we can do within education to help the to help the spirit of our youth to come forward, to allow our teachers to really teach. Right now our students are being taught to an exam. And if we can give our teenagers the opportunity to learn within our schools by teachers that are dedicated and really want to teach the human element, and we couple that with work experience during their off-school hours, I think we'd find that we would solve, within a generation's time, many of the ills that we're facing today. So again, I know that within months of getting office, I could help get our teenagers back to work by rolling back that legislation that prevents our children from working.